What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. Today, I'm here with 3 book reviews. Let's get it.
Favorite reader, that's who you are. Traveling near, traveling far. Through every chapter, you're the star. Favorite reader, that's who you are.
Okay, so I'm not going in any particular order. I'm going to review them in the order that they're stacked up beside me. So first we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a gift from Elaine. Thank you, girl. And okay, so first of all, what is this book about? This book starts off with an unnamed narrator. She like unnamed or she not. They call it a child. But anyways, she is in a underground bunker with 39 other women, so it's 40 women per bunker. And they don't know why they're there. They're in prison there. They get fed. They got these guards that's keeping them there. They don't know anything about them. They're underground. They don't know where they are, why they're there, nothing. And the other 39 grown women, they have.
Service providers for quality, safety, and security.
Hello.
Hey, I'm your DoorDash shopper.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Sorry, y'all, I got a call. Let me just, first of all, this video, this is a little sidebar. I've been trying to make this video for a week. Every time I sit here to make this video, something keeps happening, something keep coming up. And it's always something. Anyways, back on track. What was I talking about? They underground. They in this underground bunker. It's 39 women and a younger woman. So now they calling me back. You know, anyways, what was I saying? Underground in the bunker. 39 women in this bunker. They have memories and recollections outside of the bunker. But the younger girl, she does not. She was so young when she got there. It's all she knows. And what was interesting is, I know the author has a background as a psychoanalyst. And so while I was reading this book, I really was thinking about like the women who had memory of the past. They're all in this prison, but those women who have a memory of the past, they're also in another kind of prison too, because they can remember everything that was snatched and lost and things like that. So they're like in 2 prisons. But also the narrator, who is the child, she's in another kind of prison too, because you got to think like, what makes you human? What makes you human, like on the deepest level? And that's kind of the questions that this book raised. But anyways, early on in this book, they're in this bunker. Something happens and something happens and the book kind of shifts. You go on like a part 2, a little journey of sorts. And it's more the same that you already got before, but it just switches focus, like shifts the focus to something else. Which this book was pretty interesting because I know you can take it literally, like everything that's happened in this book can be taken literally, but it can also be taken metaphorically. And so when I was reading it, every step that happened, every time I was thinking we were going to get an answer, which we never did, I always stopped to think like literally, what would I take from this? And then metaphorically, what can be taken from this? Which is a pretty interesting way to read this. It's a short book. It's only 172 pages. So I was able to like look at both sides of it while I was reading. Again, asking questions like, what makes you human? What makes you a woman specifically? What is a woman's experience? When you think about the narrator and how she's a teenager, like a young woman at this time, is it convincing the way that the story was told from her point of view? I think it was, personally. But I could see, like, I was just trying to, what she was concerned with, what she wasn't concerned with, seeing things from her perspective as opposed to one of the older ladies was also interesting, I think. But you still got enough dialogue from the other ladies to kind of know like where they stood and what they were thinking about and what they were grappling and dealing with. So that was pretty cool too. Let me say this, you do not get a resolution in this book in a traditional sense. If you want a traditional resolution and things wrapped up at the end, that is not what you get from this book. This probably poses more questions than it does answers. And one of those questions is, again, like I mentioned earlier, what makes you human? What makes you a woman? Is it ingenuity? Is it creativity? Is it curiosity? Is it the human experience? Is it being alive and breathing? What is it? What happens when your world is so small, like, and then it opens up instantly? What is that? Like, what does that do to you psychologically? What does that do, period? Especially in a group setting. Like, yes, individuals, but I was also thinking about it in a group setting because this is a group of women that experienced that together, but they all had different experiences, obviously, within that. I was thinking about, I read this at a time. It's great that you can get personalized things from books based on when you read them. I read this at a time where I was really like dealing with a lot of feelings. And I was constantly wondering I feel this way and it's valid. And I got these genuine concerns and they're valid and I want to voice it. But then on the flip side of that, I'm like, dang, this is like teetering into like ungratefulness. And so I'm dealing with feeling ungrateful about a couple things that I feel like I should definitely be grateful for. And I'm like dealing with myself on that. And then I picked this book up and it was so like the main character made me think like, should you like being grateful for one, a situation that you didn't ask for, a life you didn't ask for, being in a place you didn't ask for, being in a environment you did not ask for. Should you be grateful because you breathing? Are you grateful to just be alive? Like really just, I don't know. It made me think about that a lot, probably because I was thinking about myself being grateful versus ungrateful in some situations. And I was like, dang, these women, like, they were free and they got to experience things that other people in a position didn't get to experience. And should that by itself warrant gratefulness? Or is there still room to be like, you know what? I don't want this. I didn't want that. I don't want this. And I don't have to be grateful. Now I have my own opinion on if they should or should not be, but I don't think we were supposed to be judging them in that way. It made me think about myself. Like, you are like, I don't know. It made me think about my own gratefulness. So yeah, some deep questions in here. Like I mentioned earlier about being a woman and being a human, but also what is a life lived? Is it just inhaling and exhaling and like being upright? What is a life lived? Is it being able to make your own decisions? What is freedom? What is true freedom? And does anybody have it? Obviously, I got my own opinions to this, but these are the questions that this book raises. What is aging? Why is it important? Is it important? How should we be taking that on? Can you age gracefully or not? Like, do you really need to know everything? Do you need to have all the answers? That's what this book brings. And this book ain't giving it to you. It's not giving it to you. And so many things are left up into interpretation, which that works for some people and for some people it don't. So be mindful when you picking this up. Does that work for you? Do you want to know what happens? Because every time I'm reading it and I got to like the 100-page mark and I'm like, oh, it's only 170 pages. How they gonna wrap this up? They didn't wrap it up. They said you wrap it up. You wrap it up. But you still, while you don't get your questions answered, there's still a story being told, and that story did come to an end. So I did appreciate that. It's not the traditional sense of like a textbook ending, but the journey that this book takes, you do get a conclusion. And so I think that was pretty interesting. Last thing I'm gonna say about this book, I told you that the narrator of the book was much younger than the other women she was in a bunker with. I like that. I feel like being able to see the women that, again, had a life outside of this, that were older, they were in a different stage in life, they had different life experiences, and they were shared because they all lived in the real world. And then you have this isolated individual who was literally a product of this environment, and you got to see the differences in what they were able to do, how they were able to make sense of it, what they wanted, their desires, like their innate drive, and what, I don't know, you really got to see that. And again, I kept thinking about the author being like a psychoanalyst. And so that was pretty cool. I think this book was well done. I don't know what I wanted. I don't know, but I think I went into it, I didn't know that it was going to like provide more questions and answers. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I just thought with this type of story, I'm like, I'm going to get some kind of answer. No, you're not. You got to come up with the answer yourself, or shift your focus. Stop looking for that answer and just follow the journey that you're taking. So yeah, I Who Have Never Known Men, it was a good book. Mysterious in some ways. The mystery didn't overshadow just the human questions, the questions about humanity, freedom, choice, isolation, that type of stuff. So nature versus nurture for real. So that's book one. Next, I read Galen, A Romance in Black by Walter Mosley. This book was good. This was good. I checked this out from the library. Sorry, I'm looking down. I gotta organize this mess. Anyways, I checked this out from the library because I kept seeing great reviews of it. I actually saw Shelby Monet crying like while she reading this book. So I was like, wait a minute, let me see, because I saw that at the library. Let me see what they're talking about. I got it. I enjoyed this book. Okay. First of all, let me tell you what it's about. Galen is the love child of his parents. And the book starts off with his parents meeting, falling in love, the things that they had to overcome, the adversity, judgment. Galen's parents were like night and day. They were total opposites, and you wouldn't think that they would be together. His dad was this gentleman. He was a cook at a vegan restaurant. He's neurodivergent. And he was in love with his mama, okay? And Galen's mom was a scientist. She then became a doctor, and they had this beautiful union. They were in love. They had Galen. They received judgment from the outside. You got to saw how they handled that. They raised their kid. And then, like any beautiful love story, there's always some kind of tragedy that strikes, whatever that is, loss, anything, stuff from the outside, whatever it is, you got to deal with that. So obviously this book deals with that. It is about love. This book is just as much about love as it is about grief and how those things can be intertwined. Walter Mosley also weaves in the relationship between Black men and police officers or local law enforcement and even the prison system. He weaves that in there so effortlessly. And I appreciated it. I really did. You got to see Galen come of age. He grows up. He makes choices. You get to see bits and pieces of his personality, what he might have got from his mama, what he might have got from his daddy. And he decide what is his life going to look like. He gets to make that choice. He's the only child. He's dealing with a lot. He experiences a lot of trauma, and you get to see how that plays out. Everybody is experiencing some form of trauma. Everybody is experiencing some form of love. Everybody is dealing with some kind of grief. And you get to see how that plays out in this book. There is I was expecting the first part of the book. I can say that based on what everybody was saying about the book, I expected the first part, love, heartbreak, a little boy, parents who were so different, but they love their kid. I expected that. I did not expect like what happened a little bit later on in Galen's life. I did not expect it to go where it went in this book. I really didn't. But I can see the purpose that it served. So this is a good book. It was a good book. I enjoyed it. It was a read that made you want to keep flipping the pages. It'll make you emotional. It'll make you angry, frustrated. There's some very graphic things in this book. Like I said, I didn't expect where Galen's story would go. It's some graphic stuff in there, so be prepared. I don't know if you got to look up trigger warnings or whatever. You should probably look up trigger warnings for any book that I'm talking about on my channel. But anyways, this book shocked me where it headed just because I didn't see that coming. I really didn't. But such is life. You don't see a lot of stuff coming, and people do get put in situations like Galen got put in. So love can be confusing. It can be frustrating. It can be beautiful. It can be inconvenient because you just can't, you fall in love when you fall in love and with who you fall in love with. And this book is that like transformative love, that life-changing love, that like make your soul glow love. You know, and not just romantic love. Yes, I was thinking about like Galen's parents, but also platonic love, like the love between the people that work at the restaurant with Galen's family. Like that kind of love, that I'm gonna be there for you kind of love, you know, that I don't know. I love reading books that don't fully like romanticize love. Like they do, but there's also a downside to that too. You will have to face some stuff. You will have to sacrifice some things. You will have to like go up against some things. But like love is it's so beautiful. And it's a lot that goes into it. And I feel like this book encompassed so much of that. So yeah. Another thing I liked about this book, so I don't know if I mentioned this, Galen's parents was named Jamila and Robert. You got to see their relationships with their mother. So, and then Galen's relationship with his mom. So you got 3 sets of mother-child relationships. And it was interesting for me to compare and contrast all 3 of those. Very interesting, and seeing like how that might have made the child, you know, who they were in that moment. So yeah, that was pretty interesting to me. This book talked a lot about fear too. It wove, like when I mentioned that this book is very much about love and grief, fear is woven in there too. Like fear can be combined with both of those. And I feel like that was like the glue that kind of put those 2 together. So that was pretty cool. How I mentioned with I Who Have Never Known Men, where it made me think about gratefulness because I'm at a spot in my life where that's kind of where I was dealing with. I felt that same way reading Galen. This book also made me think about being grateful and what living a fulfilled life looks like, and what like being able to self-assess and realize when you too far off the scale on this area. So that was good. What can I say? You want the best for your kids. Yeah. I did not like a few characters in this book, and I did like some others, but everybody in this book, they were their own characters. So well developed. Great storyline. So yeah, that's Galen. Okay, one last book. This was a gift from Elaine too. Thank you, Elaine. That is Blood in the Water, the Attica Prison Uprising of 1971 and Its Legacy by Heather Ann Thompson. I love a no stone left unturned book. I love a thoroughly researched up, down, left, right book. Love it. That's what this is. This book, it covers everything. First of all, this is a very comprehensive account of the 1971 prison uprising at Attica Prison in New York. This is a lot to digest. The author starts off, first of all, let me start here. She dedicated this book to all who were killed at the Attica Correctional Facility more than 4 decades ago, and she named them by names. And then she also said, and for all who were wounded, maimed, tortured, and scarred on September 13th, 1971, a list too long to recount here. You start off with like a map of the prison. Yeah. Anyways, okay, back to the book. So this is, like I said, a comprehensive account of everything that happened at Attica Prison. It starts off with a general idea of events. It paints a picture of what was already brewing in Attica at the time in the 70s. It paints a picture of how there was tension on both sides, how it was an unsafe environment for the prisoners and the correctional officers, and there were complaints being made to administration that were being ignored on both sides. So you got the officers not feeling safe, the prisoners are feeling neglected, unsafe, exploited, all type of stuff, and it's just being ignored. It's being ignored. But then while this is happening in prison, outside of the prison, times are shifting too. There's been movements where people are more politically involved. They're more apt to stand up for their rights and call stuff out and point out when they're not being treated fairly or when something may not be legal. They're more outspoken. They're going to stand up a little bit more. And they're coming from outside, from the real world. They're coming from outside in there with those same mentalities, those same like ideologies, and they mean what they say. And they got the correctional officers who they're coming in with no training. They coming in with minimal tools. They just getting thrown in there, and they're telling their superiors like, bro, this is like, we need this is not good. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. So she sets the scene with what's already brewing underneath the surface. This place is overpopulated, under-resourced. It's a lot going on here already, and it's just brewing. It's just brewing. Then you have the actual events that led up to the uprising, where the prisoners made their demands. They tried to go about it peacefully. And the people was like, we're not dealing with this. Yeah, we working on it. We're reading it. We looking at it. We doing this. And they don't want to deal with it. Then you got the actual uprising. She details that in detail. It's graphic. Also, like I said, check your trigger warnings for all these, because this is one of the few books. And I mean, I could probably count on one hand how many books I read with images like this in it, where it actually shows like bodies. It shows, I just wasn't expecting like actual photographs of like it's graphic, very graphic photographs in here. So, check that. But anyways, it shows what happened during the uprising. And then it shows the aftermath. It talks about the families that were affected. It talked about the state's investigation. It talks about the retaliation. Everything that's all encompassing. It talked about the inconsistencies and how this was reported. Like, there's things that were straight up lies being told in the courtroom, where people were changing photographs and adding stuff to it. Like, so you got to see the original picture, and then the picture that was presented where they added like a pipe to a person who had, to make it seem like he was more of a threat than he was. So you got to see that. And this was actually pretty unbiased in my opinion. And that's really hard to do for the most part. I'm sure nothing is totally unbiased, but this is more unbiased than some other histories that I read. It's, in my opinion, I feel like it's really hard to give a very neutral account of what's going on while making it clear this was inhumane. This was a lie. This was misleading, but without putting like your own personal beliefs into it, but making it clear, like objectively, this is what happened. And if you draw any other conclusion than this, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, it talked about the people like they were people in prison and the ones that's working there. It talked about the city, the prison system as a whole and how Attica fit into it. Straight up negligence and how it cost people their lives. And like I mentioned, heavily researched using interviews, transcripts, court records, whatever she could find. With stuff like this, it's so complicated because there's so many things to consider. Like when you think about prison reform, with things like this, like with the U.S. prison system, I feel like it's so many things to consider. I don't know how much like I've said about this in the past, but I spent some time like in a prison setting, not as an inmate. I wasn't an inmate, but in prison and in jails and in youth facilities, like you pick it, you name it. I've spent time there in different capacities. And when I read stuff like this, it's interesting to me because I'm looking at it from obviously my perspective and my point of view, but also I'm just like, I'm always thinking like, what is the solution to this? Like, how can you avoid this, but taking into like consideration all of these other factors? Like, how can you not neglect this thing to give this thing? How can you make sure the people that's being held there are being taken care of and being, how can you make sure that you're ensuring the safety of the people that's being held there and the correction officers? How can you make sure that this standard is being upheld? Like, I don't know. I'm always thinking about that when I read stuff like this. And then when I read it, I think about, I don't know, it's sad. It's reality. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff in here. She has a lot of references for you to go. And if you want to read more stuff, look at more stuff, you can. I watched a lot of interviews, read a lot of newspaper clippings to see which they were very biased, but that's to be expected. But I did take the information in on both sides just to see what people were saying during the 70s and then what people are saying now when we're in 2026. So this book was very good. It was, I knew I would enjoy it. This book is right up my alley, like straight through it. I knew it, but I like this more than I thought I would. And I think it's the way that the author wrote it. I think because it was so thoroughly researched and it was so like, if you only ever read one book about the Attica Uprising, this would be enough. You should read a few more, but that's just best practices. But anyways, if you only ever read this, I feel like you'd have a really good idea of the humanity involved, the injustice of the actual crimes that took place, of where blame can be placed. And I never want to make it seem like there's not enough blame to go around, because there is. There's enough blame for everybody who need the blame and get the blame. And there was just so much blame to be taken. And they like, yeah, I don't know. I like the way that this book was written. This is the type of history books that I like. So yeah. Yeah. All encompassing. But yeah, that's that. Hope I went on here too long. Those are the 3 books that I'm reviewing today. Make sure it's coming in. All of these books I would recommend. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like I recommend these to different types of people. What's that say about me that I like them all? Who knows? But I will recommend them all. They're all really good books for different, depending on what you want to read. Really good books. I enjoyed them all. I've already recommended Blood in the Water like 5 times before I recorded this video. Probably even more while I was actually reading it. So yeah, great books. I need to go return Galen to the library. I'll probably get my own copy of this because I actually really liked it. But anyways, that's it, y'all. That's it for today. And I'll see you on the next one.
Pages turning soft as silk, stories flowing like warm milk. A journey starts with every line, worlds unfolding in your mind. Bookmarks falling where dreams collide. Every cover's got a favorite reason.